Hello and welcome to my channel, Close to the Edge, where we talk about all things prog rock, classic rock, heavy rock, and maybe even a sticker rock. Stick around, you never know. Today I have a very, very special guest. Now, a very special guest, Martin Popoff. Martin, welcome to Close to the Edge.
Wicked, Pat. Thanks for having me.
And the reason why I asked Martin on, I'm going to ask Martin 20 questions. And this is going to be very interesting because I want to find out what the answers to these questions are, Martin. Very interesting. But Martin has a brilliant channel called The Contrarians over there on YouTube. Absolutely brilliant channel. You also have a brilliant podcast, Martin. 5 songs, the history in 5 songs.
And yes, we've been doing that for about as long as we've been doing The Contrarians, up to 308 episodes of that at this point, where I just kind of pick 5 little music clips to fit a theme, and then we just rattle off on that theme.
But they're very interesting, though, Martin. Very interesting. I really do like him. And also, Martin does these brilliant books.
Nice.
Brilliant books. And I'm going to stick all the information up on the description. Okay, Martin?
Sure.
The brilliant books. Now, you do books on Kiss, Tin Lizzy, you name it, you've done it.
Yeah, covered all the dad rock bases. There's not too many left to go.
No, there's not too many left to go. And I will put all those links in the description, Martin. Okay? And of course, I forgot, he's also on the Pete Pardo channel. Does Friday morning the Funhouse, Martin?
Yep. Every second week now. It used to be weekly, but Pete's toned it back a little bit.
Yeah, brilliant show. And I'll put all those links in the description. Anyway, Martin, thanks very much again, as I said, for coming on the show. And the first question, Martin, is how old are you and where are you from originally in Canada?
All right, I'm 62 years old, born in Castlegar, BC, which is a little town of Doukhobor heritage. That town, literally, there's a lot of people that probably still to this day, the old folks anyways, barely speak any English, speak mostly Russian. But yeah, born there. But then quickly over to Vancouver and then back, but grew up in Trail, BC, which is close to Castlegar, just like 20 minutes away. So it's grew up there my whole school life into university, although I'd go away and come back kind of thing. But significantly for people who don't know, it's right on the border with the States and just north of Spokane, Washington. So that's where I ended up buying lots of records and stuff. Very, very far from Vancouver, very far from Calgary, about 7-8 hour drive.
Okay, Martin. And where you living now, Martin?
Toronto. Been here for about 35 years now.
Okay. That's fantastic, Martin. Yeah. Now, Martin, number 2. What genres of music do you like?
Boy, growing up, it was all kind of hard rock and heavy metal for a long time. We mathematically would check every album and make sure it had enough heavy quotient. Otherwise, it just was dead to us kind of thing. It eventually, broadened horizons first into punk in 77. As a kid, I would have been 14 at that point. Also prog because I started playing drums. So a lot of that, a lot of college rock later on, alternative, basically all things rock and roll, no jazz whatsoever, no classical whatsoever, no country whatsoever, no hip hop. And probably what I've played for the last 10 or 15 years, the most is things like that you would qualify as new wave and post-punk. I've just been really doing a big exploration of that kind of stuff in the last bunch of years. So, and a lot of punk still. I just seem to be really into punk, new wave, and post-punk in the last 10 or 15 years.
You're an old punk head then, really, basically.
Absolutely. I was there at the beginning and buying all those records as imports as they came out, or the Canadian domestic copies or US. Had just my knowledge base is really good on, proto-punk into punk, up until about 78, 79. And then as it starts to, splinter into oi and hardcore and stuff, but my knowledge base goes down.
Okay. Thanks for that, Martin. Now, Martin, which music genres do you dislike?
Pretty much anything that isn't rock, I haven't paid any attention to whatsoever. Like I say, jazz, classical, country, hip hop, pop. I hate pop, man. I hate today's pop. It actually makes me cranky and angry. But there's, other than that, almost anything that comes under the rock umbrella, I like I like some folk or folk rock at least. Singer songwriter kind of stuff as well. I like southern rock and some semi country rock, I suppose you would call it, roots rock. But yeah, just have paid zero attention to anything outside of rock.
So you don't really go outside your comfort zone, really.
Well, it's a wide net, of course, and it's
it is a wide net.
It has afforded me and will afford me. If I had 7 or 8 more lifetimes, there'd be enough rock alone to explore.
Very good, Martin. Martin, number 4. How often would you actually listen to music? Roughly.
Not that often. These days, okay, put it this way, in the car always. Jogging, I would. I haven't been jogging much lately. I got to pick that up again. But walking has been kind of replaced with a lot of YouTube talk, right? I listen to a lot of, political stuff and conspiracy theory stuff and occult stuff and, anything to do with talk, right? A lot of talk YouTube, but loads and loads of politics. I probably listen to 6 to 8 hours of politics a day. So always, but driving around, always music. Music, if I'm doing heavy work, I'll have music on in the background. If I'm doing lighter work, that can be talk, and it's rarely talk about music. Not very often. Don't play the stereo all that often when I'm watching YouTube. I do watch the odd music documentary and odd music YouTube, but surprisingly not all that often. Okay,
Martin. Very interesting. So, does music influence your mood?
Absolutely. I would say, I mentioned jogging earlier. You need something up and cheerful to do that. I like corresponding music. Is that a verb? Corresponding music to the weather. So I will play my Smiths and Morrissey when it's cold and rainy out. I have nighttime music. I have morning music. Morning, I definitely want something pretty cheerful so I don't end up in a depressing mood kind of thing. Quiet music to mellow out. What else? Drinking music can go 2 or 3 different directions. So absolutely, it's used to change my mood and influence my mood.
Okay, that's excellent. Martin, number 6. On which devices do you primarily play music on? And do you subscribe to a streaming service?
Okay, so in the car, I have 2 full iPod Classics. So they each have 5,000 albums on them. So in the car, it's always my iPod Classic. I've tried to listen to music on the phone in the car, and it's inferior and it's more fiddling around. I think the iPod Classic is the greatest piece of stereo equipment ever made. It's unbelievably easy to use, and they work great. And they're like, I don't know, 20 years old, both of these. So in the car, it's that. Walking around, it can be the iPod Classic. Jogging, it was always the iPod Classic. Walking around, it could be the phone, but rarely. I have a stereo, not the greatest stereo equipment in the world. You'd think I'd have better stuff, but not the greatest, but it'll do because I find I really don't play the stereo very much. And my very best stereo is, number 1, anything with earbuds. I like very in-ear earbuds. But the very best stereo I own for music coming through the air is my computer one. I've got these 2 Altec Lansing tweeters sitting on the desk, left and right, and I've got a subwoofer. This whole bloody thing was $99 20 years ago. Hooked up to the computer, it is absolutely high fidelity, goes as loud as you would ever care to want it without distorting. It's a beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous sounding stereo. So that's actually where I get my very best sound. I actually get very, very good sound in the car as well. My least good sound is the home stereo. And yes, I use Spotify pretty much all the time. If it's not on Spotify, like on my computer, right? If it's not on Spotify, I'll go to YouTube if it's something pretty rare, because there's actually a lot of things that are not on Spotify. Then I got a large CD collection and a large record collection. I play those as well.
Okay, thanks for that, Martin. So, Martin, who is your favorite artist or band?
I got a pretty boring answer to this. All my answers to this are pretty boring. It literally could be on any given day. Well, it's not particularly, oh, that's surprising or obscure or whatever. So when I answer this question, it usually has to be a band that's been with me forever, that's got a massive catalog, that I like most of the catalog. And I usually don't throw in a band where I adore half the catalog, but I don't like the other half. So it's got to be like high percentage as well. So I often will go with AC/DC. I shouldn't go with AC/DC because there's actually a lot of AC/DC, large swaths of it I'm not that crazy about. So I think officially with you, Pat, I'm going to drop AC/DC from this list. ZZ Top, Blue Oyster Cult, Thin Lizzy. I would say let's go with those three. ZZ Top, Blue Oyster Cult, Thin Lizzy.
Okay, and anyone, you probably couldn't say which one.
Okay.
I
also want to include the Damned as well because I play so much the Damned all the time. And for the last 20 years, they're one of my most played bands. XTC as well, super high. But yes, if you want me to pick one, I think let me kind of go through here. No, it can't be Blue Oyster Cult. So I'm not crazy about the first three albums too much anymore. I think you know what? It is going to have to be the Damned. It really is going to have to be the Damned because there's so much variety there. I get stuff. I get a lot out of every era. ZZ Top comes and goes for me a little bit. Man, Thin Lizzy'd be really close too because there's barely any Thin Lizzy I'm not a massive fan of. But let's go with the Damned.
Damn, that's brilliant, Martin. Brilliant. Martin, why did you start your YouTube channel?
Marco and Nick started it with me, and I was just super impressed. They had all this massive old school TV and film gear that they would bring over to my office, and they'd set all this up, and they were very enthusiastic and want to do all this research, and they did all this cool editing and stuff. So it was just as Zoom was sort of coming on. So I thought, look, if these guys want to do this, it's pretty cool that we're doing this, fairly high production show. With lights and everything and computer equipment. So they kind of got me interested in it because they would come to my office, make it pretty effortless for me. So we started that, but we quickly, as COVID ended, we quickly moved over to Zoom, or COVID started, we moved over to Zoom, and then we stuck with Zoom kind of thing. It was just a cool idea that was pushed by those guys because they had the equipment to do it and they made it easy on me. And it's like, okay, we'll come up with some ideas. And we quickly came up with our original idea, which was somebody has an odd pick for favorite album by a band and you have to argue it against someone else's. So that was all our first episodes. So from there, it was off to the races.
And of course, the name, The Contrarians, is really spot on, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it did align. Well, it's spot on to that original concept, but now it's like, why did you call it that? It's a little bit like Pete with Sea of Tranquility. It's just a bit of a weird name that has origins that because we're not always contrarian. It's not always having to do with a contrarian theme, I suppose.
No, a different point of view, maybe.
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it, Martin. So, Martin, what do you enjoy most about music? Like, is it lyrics, melody, rhythm, emotion, or all of them, or some of them?
Interesting. I would say lyrics. I would say lyrics first. I do read the lyrics. I read along. It makes a big difference on whether I'm going to like that band a lot. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Emotion, like I say, it can fine tune or change your emotions. Certain bands, studying certain bands over a long amount of time and identifying with them. I've often had this idea that you could actually adjust your personality based on what you play, right?
That's true. That's true.
It can make you exercise more. It can make you drink more. It can make you take drugs. It can make you exercise less. It can make you positive. It can make you negative. It literally can change your personality. And I've often thought that, like, if you go to boot camp with a certain kind of band for months on end, I mean, you will start thinking like them. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I would say lyrics.
Lyrics. Okay, that's brilliant, man. Well, actually, the next question, I think you're already after answering is, what emotions do you associate with music? I think you just said it.
Energy level is a big one, right? But yeah, depression, nostalgia, love, morbidity, depression. There's a lot of things you can get out of music. Your general disposition, I suppose. Like I say, it can be used to affect it and move that fulcrum one way or another as well.
Okay, Martin. Do you ever find though? I do find it as well. Say if you had a bad day at work or a bad day or whatever, I find if I put on the heaviest album I have, crank it up.
Yeah, another thing that that oddly shouldn't make you feel better, but it's a bit of that. What's that German word? Schadenfreude or whatever is play dead people, and then that makes you happy you're not dead.
Very good, Martin. Very good. So, how important then, we move on, is music in your daily life?
Well, the odd thing is it's my career. It's my job. So I'm always thinking about it. But as I said earlier, I'm not really playing it that often. I almost play it to verify certain things, or when I'm studying and I'm writing about it. So I suppose when I say I don't play it often, I'm forgetting all the music I played to do my job. So that's that is also important. That is playing music, literally. But yeah, I've often been in situations where I get argumentative with people because I really don't like people recommending music to me, right? For various reasons. There's so much music in the world. I don't need to be recommended. I've got a long list of bands that I'm recommending to myself that I got to get around to, and just some random, band out in the middle of nowhere that started in the year 2008 or whatever. It's like, for a whole pile of reasons, I don't like getting recommended music. So how important is it? Like I say, it's super important because it's my job, but it's not the biggest leisure activity in my life. Like I say, I listen to so much talk YouTube. Or TikTok for that matter. That's where I get my entertainment and some sports as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not a massive entertainment source for me anymore.
Okay, thanks for that, Martin. Martin, this kind of brings us on to the next question. I think you've already stated when you're studying or working, would you have music on in the background?
Yeah. So what I find is that the lighter the work, the more likely I will go to talk. And listen to talk radio, talk YouTube. But the funny thing is if you start concentrating on your work, you just miss everything that happened in that talk anyways. And you got to go back, or you go, well, that was kind of pointless. It was just chatter in the background. I missed all of it. So as the work gets heavier and heavier, I'll have music on in the background. And if it's like incredibly heavy work, like writing an introduction to a book or something where there's a lot of organizing, doing photo research and stuff. Sometimes in rare occasions, I got to turn everything off to be able to concentrate. But generally speaking, my entire life, whether it's writing a school report in elementary school or whatever, my entire life, I've been able to do whatever work it is with music going in the background.
On the background. Very good, Martin. Very good. Martin, I think you might have said earlier on that you actually played an instrument. Have you played an instrument or any other instruments?
Yeah, I was a drummer, and we even had a bar band that literally got paid to play the bars. So I guess I was briefly professional for a moment there. So yeah, I played drums semi-seriously in the late 70s, early 80s, I suppose. And I've always had a guitar and plunked along, and I've always had a bass and plunked along. We've got a keyboard as well. We even bought a violin at one point. But yeah, I actually spent a fair bit of time on bass as well, and learned a little bit of guitar. But that was a long, long time ago, and even the drums is a long time ago now. But I would say drums would be my main main instrument. The drum. Sorry, what was that, Pat?
If you sat behind a drum kit now, would you be able to? Would you be able to feel your
way
back
you do. I've noticed that periodically over the years. If I've been away for 5 years and haven't touched any drumsticks or whatever, you get on. You quickly can sort it out. You're a bit rough. The sticks run into each other sometimes. You might drop one or whatever, or that fill was not particularly clean. And also, I noticed when I would do that, if you played for enough time, like say a couple hours or whatever, you'll pull a muscle somewhere. Because you haven't used those muscles properly. But yeah, I tend to pick it up pretty quick. And I think by being a crazy music fan, if you're a drummer, you're constantly tapping out things. Like I swear over time, just by listening to hundreds of hours of music, you probably get better at playing it as well.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, intuitively. You hear about those people who can just pick up an instrument and play anything. I feel a little bit like that. Certainly, like with bass, because instead, you know, bass is has no chords. So bass is just very straight line. It's like a little bit of the difference between squash and racquetball. Or no, let's say squash and golf, right?
Yes.
Or let's say squash and ice hockey, right? To play ice hockey, you need to be able to skate. To play guitar, you need to be able to play chords. To play racquetball, you just need to whack the ball. And bass is like that, right? Bass is just like, there's the note, hit it, right? There's no mystery to it, right? But I noticed that just logging hours of listening to music, I could pick up a bass and very quickly play the tune.
Okay, that's fantastic, Martin. That really and the bass thing is fascinating, because I have a few friends who play bass and they play it so effortlessly. I can't play an instrument, but they play it so effortlessly. You know what I mean?
But you see what I mean, Pat? Like, there's no mystery to bass, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, even drums, there's a little bit of mystery. You have these little milestones that you have to break through on, right? Getting, you know, playing fast, or even just playing a beat, or having that beat, you know, do some wiring to your head, and you know what a beat is, and you know how to accent it properly and stuff. Yeah. But guitar has a lot of mystery. There are big brick walls put up in guitar, you know, to be able to go through and play a few chords. The other big brick wall that bass and guitar both have is getting calluses on your fingers. I mean, that's important. Yes. Because for a while there, you start playing and you just have red raw fingertips, right? So there are little hurdles, but bass, there's just no magic to bass. There's no mystery to it. It's just like, stick your finger here, hit the note, play it.
Brilliant, Martin. Brilliant. Here's one for you, Martin. Very good question. What memories or experience do certain songs remind you of? Is there a certain song that will take you back when you were younger, or when you're in your teenage years, and when you hear it now, it rekindles good memories or bad memories?
Yeah, too many to mention, but in general, I mean, thousands of songs do that. You know, whether it's a relationship, or a part of school, or where you lived, or a certain thing you were going through, or a certain apartment you lived in. So yeah, your car, you know, hanging out with these three friends, or those two friends, or that one friend, drinking, playing a sport, whatever. I mean, there's just many. You know, a certain phase, you know, certain ones will remind you of what job you had at that time, you know, what you were into. So yeah, it's that's almost literally the whole point of, I guess, nostalgia in music.
It's brilliant though that music can do that though, isn't it, Martin? That it can actually conjure up those images.
Yeah. Except we spend too much time living in the past that way.
That's quite true. That is true. Now, Martin, do you prefer to listen to music alone or with others, or do you mix it around?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it is kind of interesting to listen with others. I mean, that was more of like friends in high school and stuff situation. As you get older, you get more separated out, and you don't do a lot of that. There's seeing music live with you know, friends and family, right? That's kind of interesting. But the funny thing about listening to music live is you can't really discuss it until after, because it's so loud. But listening with friends as kids, that's pretty cool, because you are discussing the whole thing at the time. Making your little list and stuff. And you're seeing the reactions, and playing it for people is great. That's why being a DJ is such an interesting job. And I feel my job as a book writer is essentially the same job as a DJ as well. You're just trying to push music on people, turn people on to things that you like, right?
That you like, exactly. And you're disappointed if they don't like it. Yeah.
But as kids, to be able to you know, I bought this album, and take it over and present it to them, that's really always really fun.
It is always cool. It is cool. Now, Martin, then here's one for you, because I presume you're after seeing so many bands live. Who, in
Yeah.
your opinion, is the best band that you saw live, or the best concert set? The one that sticks
Wow.
out. The one
Yeah.
that sticks out.
For some reason, a band that I really love, one of my favorite bands and played regularly is X out of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Exene Cervenka, John Doe, Billy Zoom,
Yeah, I've
DJ
heard of them,
Bonebreak.
yeah.
Yeah, I love those guys. I've seen them live a couple times, and that was amazing. Here's an obscure one: Sons of Freedom, this crazy Vancouver band who sound
No, I haven't
like a
heard of
heavy
them, Martin,
version.
no.
Yeah, they sound like a heavy version of a heavy, repetitive version of Bullet, the Blue Sky era U2 in a way.
Yeah.
Hard to describe. They're from Vancouver. 5440 also from Vancouver. Why am I naming all these obscure bands? Who else would have been incredible live? Man. Yeah, let's just go with those ones. For some reason,
no, they're the ones that come up. Yeah, perfect, Martin.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, this is the next question, number 17, is a contrarian question, really. Name the worst band you saw live. The one that you came away from the concert saying, my God.
Yeah. Okay. A funny one that is literally in that department, but not completely, and I'll get to that in a second, was the Replacements in Vancouver at the Town Pump back in about 1988. And they were loaded, absolutely loaded, stopping songs, starting songs. You don't see that very often, like making mistakes, switching instruments around, just talking. So that was pretty funny. I was in one of those situations. I think it might have been July 4th. So the American, Independence Day, right? And they're from the States, although they're playing in Canada. So that might have been their excuse. But what else for a bad one? Boy, I suppose I've seen a few of these notorious singers when they were past their due date singing. I remember seeing Stephen Piercy in a club once, thinking, he's definitely past due date or not singing so well. But yeah, let's go with the Replacements. That literally fits.
Came to you, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Martin. Martin, what's your favorite era in rock music? Is it 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever? What's the one that sticks out?
I've always, for my entire life, said 76 to 79. But until recently, I've spent so much time with that sort of 80 to 84 period of, like I say, new wave punk and post-punk. That's Susie and the Banshees is a band I just play all the time now, right? So you learn new bands that you kind of skipped over at the time, and I have this idea, this concept about nostalgia for things you missed, but they are of your era. So you go back to a time and find things that you really don't have nostalgia for because you missed them at the time, but you have little hints of nostalgia for because they are of a time that you're interested in, right? So I would say for the last 20 years, I have shifted that, maybe because I'm completely sick of it and have explored it to death. Pretty much none of the 70s. And Pete and I had a fascinating couple of shows where we talked about how he's kind of an old soul. He's like slightly younger than me, but he loves 70 to 75. And yet I'm a little older than him. And with all our classic bands, I lean to 75 to 79 for my favorite albums by all our classic bands.
Yeah,
so that's
that
kind of
video.
interesting.
That was a strange one. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would have to say 79 to 84 is my favorite era of the
at this moment in time. Okay,
Yeah.
Martin. Second last question, Martin. Do you think rock music has evolved positively over the years? From what rock when it started out, probably the 50s, was it rock and roll and all that?
Yeah, I think the evolution is always better than it ever was because it moves faster than it ever was. It moves faster, it qualitatively and quantitatively. Qualitatively, because today's bands have this massive, wellspring or storage locker of rock history to build upon. So they're just automatically can be smarter, and they're way better players every single year. Every 5 minutes, players get better, it seems, in all departments.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
so there's a lot of that. It's much easier to make albums these days, which is more of a positive than a negative. I know craggy old men complain about that, but the fact of the matter is, I think music, and you know, soon as there is a genre, it never completely goes away. So all genres that ever existed are still in operation at some level of strength. So I think I think the evolution is always richer qualitatively and quantitatively as time goes on.
Brilliant answer, Martin. Thanks for that. Martin, the final question, tough one. Final question. If you had to take just one album, hypothetically speaking, to a desert island, what would that album be?
Boy, you know, I can answer this so many different ways, and I've been on shows talking about this, but for some reason, the first thing that pops into my mind all the time is something like Frank Zappa's "You Are What You Is," and the reason for that is
Brilliant album.
it's got a generally cheerful vibe. It's funny. It's amusing. It's a double album. Frank Zappa's dead, so I can feel at least some Schadenfreude that I'm not dead yet, and he died relatively young. So yeah, a lot of weird reasons. I'm sick of it, but I'm not completely totally. I seem to never get completely totally sick of it, like I am with many of my albums that I grew up with in the 70s, like a Kiss album or an Aerosmith album or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. I always, first artist that comes to mind is always Frank Zappa. And then I think, I want to pick something from him that I don't know very well, but then I quickly decide, well, every time I go play Them or Us or Chic Your Booty or Joe's Garage Act 2 and 3, I'm disappointed. I'm not crazy about large swaths of those records, but You Are What You is one that is just like, I'm that Frank Zappa poser who's like, give me the hits, give me the short songs, give me the comedy, give me the rock. I'm not a big long instrumental jazz fusion Frank Zappa fan. I hate that early stuff from the 60s. Can't stand it. So yeah, I'm definitely a You Are What You Is kind of guy.
Well, that's a brilliant answer, Martin. Very surprised that was your answer, actually. Very surprised. I was
how can you not be surprised when you ask somebody to pick one album when there are 50 50 or 100 million albums in the world?
No, but I was expecting, going by all your video, I was expecting Sabotage or Physical Graffiti.
Right.
Yeah, going by or a Tin Lizzy album.
Yeah,
but that's a brilliant pick, though, Martin. That is a brilliant pick. Martin, how did you enjoy that? Okay.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really cool. Made me think of a lot of things I never thought of before.
Good. I enjoyed it now, Martin. I thought your answers were fantastic, and that's what I wanted to, especially yourself, Martin, because you're such renowned in the music industry for all your books, all your shows, and you come across, I know you have the channel, but you come across very positively about music. Like, there's a lot of people moaning and all that kind of stuff, but you come across so positively, even though you might not like the album, it's still a positive video.
Yeah. I can complain. I will cut to the chase sometimes. But a negative thing about me is that I can in my mind bite my tongue and be political, because so many of these bands I'm kind of acquaintances with. They're not particularly friends, but definitely acquaintances with dozens and dozens and dozens of bands, right? And I've written books on them and stuff. And there's a lot of bands and a lot of albums that I've written books on that I'm not particularly a fan of. I suppose I've said that in the books, but I probably pull my punches a little bit because I am knee deep in the industry. So I suppose I got to watch what I say sometimes too.
Sometimes you have to watch your P's and Q's, as they say over here.
Yeah,
exactly. Martin, I have to say thank you very much for coming on the channel. I really do appreciate it.
Wicked. Okay, Pat, that was fun.
Fantastic. And I'll just say thanks very much for everyone who watched it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And it's nice to be nice, Martin. I always say that at the end of my videos. And whatever anyone is doing, stay safe. Okay, Martin, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye now. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.